quiet town of Mystic Falls Crossing, peace lived in silence until the Devil's Wake Motorcycle Club rolled in. What they didn't realize when they targeted blind piano teacher Emily Cooper was that her service dog wasn't just any German shepherd. Zeus was a legend in fur, one of the most decorated military K9s ever deployed. Marcus Helios Davidson thought he was messing with a defenseless woman and her pet. Instead, he stirred a sleeping storm. A war-trained protector with instincts sharper than steel, Zeus wasn't just walking Emily down Main Street, he was guarding the line between calm and chaos. They say a soldier never forgets the battlefield. Tonight, a gang of outlaw bikers is about to find out that some dogs never leave the fight behind. This is the story of Zeus, from war hero in Afghanistan, to guide dog, to something more. Because sometimes, the deadliest guardian doesn't growl. He wears a vest. Quick pause, before we dive deeper, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? And if you love stories like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Tomorrow's episode? Let's just say you won't want to miss it. As the morning sun stretched long shadows across Main Street, Emily Cooper moved with quiet confidence, her hand resting lightly on Zeus's harness. She couldn't see the faces in the crowd, but her steps never faltered. Zeus guided her with the grace of a general, every step deliberate, every glance alert. Outside Morning Glory Cafe, old Jim Peterson paused his sweeping, tipping his hat as they passed. "Morning, Emily. Zeus keeping you safe?" "As always, Jim. Though I think he's more interested in the smell of your cinnamon rolls." Zeus's ears flicked at the word treat, but his focus never wavered. This wasn't just guide dog behavior, there was a quiet vigilance in him, something far beyond basic training. Emily's cane tapped the sidewalk in a steady rhythm as they neared the Mystic Falls Music Academy. Her first student would arrive in 20 minutes. The scent of mountain pine mixed with fresh coffee in the crisp Montana air. "Morning, Mrs. Henderson," she called as they passed the sheriff's wife tending flowers. "Emily, dear. Jesse's been practicing like mad since your last lesson." Their warm exchange was cut short by the low growl of engines. Zeus shifted almost invisibly, muscles coiling beneath the harness. 3 motorcycles thundered past, riders in leather, patches bold and unfamiliar. Emily couldn't see them, but Zeus could. Across the street, local vet Sarah Martinez watched from her clinic doorway, eyes narrowing. "They're new," she muttered, stepping closer. "Seen more of them lately. You holding up okay?" "We're fine," Emily said softly, but her hand had tensed on the harness. Zeus's body told her what words couldn't. Inside the academy, she moved with practiced ease, fingers brushing the light switch she didn't need. Zeus led her to the piano. She checked the keys, adjusted the bench. At 9 sharp, 10-year-old Tommy Matthews burst in, sneakers squeaking on the hardwood. "Remember last week?" Emily asked gently, guiding him through the chords. "Music's about feeling. Let the rhythm flow." As Tommy played, more motorcycles passed. Zeus's ears tracked each one, mind working behind calm eyes. 3 passes. That wasn't normal for this quiet town. At the Black Pine Diner, Marcus Helios Davidson watched it all from behind greasy windows, his leather cut stitched with tales of violence. "Quiet little town," muttered Steve Nexus Miller. "Reminds me of Idaho." "Too quiet," Helios said, fingers tapping the table. "Too trusting." Time they remembered how fast peace can disappear. Their newest recruit, Joey Cypher Carter, shifted uneasily. His dishonorable discharge still haunted him. He glanced at Emily and Zeus. "That woman," he said. "She teaches kids music and stuff." Helios smirked. "Yeah. Half the town treats her like some kind of saint. Her and that mutt of hers." And across the street, as if on cue, Zeus turned his head, staring straight through the diner window. His body still. His instincts awake. Though Zeus's body stayed relaxed, there was something in his eyes, a razor-sharp focus, that made Cypher instinctively look away. As the morning moved on, Emily continued her lessons. Each child brought their own rhythm, their own burst of energy into the little studio. But between the notes and laughter, whispers from the street crept through the open windows, quiet conversations about the growing number of bikers riding into town. Outside, Sheriff Mike Henderson's heavy boots crossed the pavement with authority built over 15 years of service. The diner door creaked open behind him. "Gentlemen," he said, addressing the bikers. "Welcome to Mystic Falls Crossing. Hope you're finding everything you need." Helios stood, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Just enjoying the small-town charm, Sheriff," he replied, with a grin that didn't reach his eyes. "Places like this, always so welcoming." The tension between them was unmistakable, and even from across the street, Zeus picked up on it. His head lifted slightly, muscles shifting under the harness. Emily felt it instantly, the kind of subtle shift only years of tactical training could create. As her final morning student packed up their sheet music, Emily reached down and scratched behind Zeus's ear. "What's got you on edge today, boy? You're usually a little more chill." Zeus leaned into her touch, but his eyes never left the street. More motorcycles rolled in, their engines cracking the mountain stillness like distant thunder. The town's peaceful rhythm had changed, and Zeus knew it before anyone else. Across the way, Sarah Martinez stood in the doorway of her veterinary clinic. Her eyes narrowed as another wave of bikers parked near Emily's studio. The way they watched made her uneasy. Her hand hovered over her phone, thumb ready to call Sheriff Henderson. By midday, the shadows on Main Street had shrunk, but the unease had grown. Emily, unaware of how close danger was circling, prepared for her afternoon lessons. But Zeus was already calculating. His instincts whispered that the past was catching up. Later that day, as the sun stretched the shadows long again, Emily locked the doors of the music academy. Zeus stood slightly in front of her, angled between her and the street. The bikes were louder now, more frequent. Something was changing, and whatever it wasn't good. Inside the Black Pine Diner, Helios watched from his usual spot. His scarred fingers curled around a cup of cold coffee. "Tell me more about the blind piano teacher," he said without looking away from the window. Mike Oracle Walker slid a folded napkin across the table, his notes scribbled in tight handwriting. "Emily Cooper. Local her whole life. Lost her vision in a car accident 5 years ago. Parents live on the edge of town, dad's a retired firefighter, mom's a nurse at Mystic Falls General. Been using that service dog for about 3 years now." Helios squinted at the sidewalk where Emily and Zeus passed, his jaw tight. They treat her like some kind of hometown angel. Her and that mutt. Across from him, Cypher watched Zeus's movements through the glass. The precision. The posture. Something was off, not in a bad way. In a familiar way. A military way. But he stayed quiet. Challenging Helios's attention was never a smart move. Later, as Emily stopped by Sarah's clinic, the bell above the door chimed softly. Zeus led her in, his movements smooth and controlled. "Emily," Sarah greeted warmly, her tone laced with concern. "Was hoping you'd stop by. Zeus is due for a checkup next week, isn't he?" "Actually, I just came to ask about that pet supply order." Sarah rustled through a stack of papers behind the counter. "Right here. Though truthfully, there's something else I wanted to talk to you about, those bikers. They've been watching your studio, especially the one in charge." Emily's grip on the harness tightened. "I've noticed. Can't see them, but I hear enough. And Zeus, he feels it." Before Sarah could respond, the clinic door chimed again, this time with the heavy stomp of multiple boots. Zeus's stance shifted, barely noticeable to the untrained eye, but Emily felt it in the subtle resistance through the harness. His training had kicked in. Well, Helios's voice called out, soaked in false charm. "If it isn't our local maestro. Boys, make some room. Don't want to spook her seeing I'm what." Steve Nix's Miller laughed behind him, a harsh, metallic sound. Sarah stepped forward, but Emily beat her to it, her voice calm, steady, unshaken. Zeus isn't confused. He knows exactly where everyone is. The air thinned. Helios's grin faltered. Zeus stood stone still, eyes tracking every movement like a soldier in enemy territory. Frank Phoenix Thompson shifted just a little too close, and Zeus's ears twitched, a barely visible warning that Cypher, still near the door, definitely noticed. "Friendly little thing, ain't he?" Helios muttered, stepping in closer. "Most dogs get nervous around strangers," he added. Emily didn't hesitate. Zeus only gets nervous when there's a reason. And for a long moment, nobody said a word. The warning hung in the air like a storm cloud. And Helios? For the first time since riding into Mystic Falls Crossing, he wasn't so sure he liked what he saw in that dog's eyes. Something about the way Zeus held himself made Cypher uneasy, like the dog was built for war, not walks. "Better keep him on a short leash," Helios finally muttered, his voice colder now. "Would be a shame if anything happened to a dog that valuable." The threat wasn't subtle. Sarah instinctively reached for her phone, but Emily's free hand gently stopped her. "Zeus can handle himself," she said firmly. Though blind, she turned her face directly toward Helios. "Some things you can't control with a leash." Outside the clinic, Sheriff Henderson's cruiser rolled by, slowing as he noticed a cluster of motorcycles parked out front. His deputy, Jack Morris, reached for the radio. "You think we should step in?" Henderson studied the scene through the glass, saw the tension in Zeus's posture. "Not yet," he said. "Something tells me that dogs got it handled." Inside, Helios stepped even closer, now barely a foot from Emily. Zeus remained still, but every muscle was coiled beneath his vest, locked in military readiness. Cypher knew the signs. He'd seen it before, back when dogs like that were used in places where every street held danger. "You've got guts," Helios said, the edge in his voice undeniable. "Most folks in towns like this can't even meet my eye." He smirked. "Of course, not really your issue, is it?" Sarah cut in quickly, hiding her nerves with professionalism. "I have appointments waiting. If there's nothing medical." "Just being friendly," Helios said with a smirk, backing off and signaling to his crew. "Making sure the local legend knows she's on our radar." The bikers turned to leave, boots thudding against the floor, but Cypher lingered just a moment longer. His eyes met Zeus's, and in that quiet second, something passed between them. Recognition. Not as strangers, but as soldiers. As the door shut behind them, Sarah rushed to lock it. "Emily, I'm calling the sheriff." That was a threat. "Not yet," Emily said calmly. "If it were real, Zeus would have done something. Wouldn't you, boy?" Zeus pressed gently against her leg, his muscles relaxing slightly, but his eyes stayed locked on the door, tracking every motion beyond the glass. Across the street, Helios gathered his crew in the diner's parking lot. He lit a cigarette, eyes narrowed. "There's something off about that dog," he muttered. "Oracle, dig deeper. I want to know exactly where he came from." Cypher stayed behind, watching as Zeus led Emily through the afternoon crowd. The dog's movement patterns, the way he cleared sight lines, responded to minor aggression, scanned for exits, it was all too familiar. Inside the clinic, Sarah made 2 quiet phone calls. The first was to Sheriff Henderson, careful not to accuse, but clear in her concern. The second went to Tom Cooper. "Tom," she said, her voice low, "those bikers? They made it clear your daughter's their new focus." "She's okay," Zeus handled it. But, the way he handled it, it was almost too perfect. You get what I'm saying? By now, the sun was dipping lower in the sky. As Emily and Zeus made their way home, she felt the weight in his stride, how the tension in the harness had changed. "It's all right, boy," she whispered, gently rubbing behind his ear. "We both knew this peace wouldn't last forever." Zeus pressed closer, every bit the loyal guide, but inside, the soldier in him was awake. For now, he was still both, her protector and her eyes. But the sound of motorcycles echoing through Mystic Falls Crossing told both of them that the quiet life they'd built was about to face a test. Behind them, Cypher sat on his bike, watching. Pieces were falling into place. He'd seen that kind of alertness before, but in dogs wearing different vests and deserts far from Montana. The only question now was how his brothers would react when they found out what Zeus really was. Telling and preparing this story took time, so if you're still with us, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps us keep bringing these powerful stories to life. Now, let's get back to it. The weekend arrived, and with it came Mystic Falls Crossing's annual Heritage Festival, a celebration of small-town roots and community spirit. The town square transformed into a patchwork of vendor tents, handmade crafts, and the smell of barbecue drifting through the mountain air. At the center of it all, on a makeshift stage, Emily Cooper played a donated piano, her fingers dancing across the keys with effortless grace. Children sat cross-legged in front, completely mesmerized. At her feet, Zeus lay still, his body relaxed, his head resting on his paws. But his eyes never stopped moving. From the edge of the crowd, Tom Cooper stood watching. His calloused hands, shaped by years as a firefighter, gripped a cup of black coffee. He wasn't just watching his daughter, he was watching the dog. Tom knew the signs. He'd worked with K-9 units on rescue missions. He could tell when a dog was working. And Zeus was working. "Beautiful music," a gravelly voice said beside him. Tom turned to see James Wilson, a retired Army sergeant who'd moved into town the previous spring. But Wilson wasn't looking at the stage, his gaze was locked on Zeus. "You've got a hell of a dog there," Wilson murmured. "Service Animal Program got lucky with that one." Before Tom could respond, the deep rumble of motorcycles split the air. Zeus's head lifted, just slightly. No bark, no movement. But his attention sharpened. 8 bikes rolled into the square, patches gleaming on their jackets. The Devil's Wake had arrived. Helios was the first to dismount, his boots crunching against the gravel as he scanned the festive crowd. "Quite the party," he announced loudly, drawing the attention of nearby families. "Hope you don't mind a few more guests." Sheriff Henderson appeared from the crowd with quiet authority, his deputy just behind. "Everyone's welcome at the Heritage Festival," he said carefully. "As long as they remember, it's a family event." On stage, Emily kept playing, her face serene, eyes unfocused yet calm. Her fingers didn't miss a single note. But Zeus had gone still, every muscle beneath his vest tight, silent, and ready. Cypher drifted away from the group, walking toward the veteran memorial wall. His fingers brushed across the etched names, but his eyes kept flicking back to Zeus. Something about the dog kept nagging at him, an instinct from his brief military past. "Military history interest you?" The voice made Cypher jump. James Wilson had appeared beside him, silent and solid, every inch a retired soldier. "Just looking," Cypher muttered, though his eyes betrayed something deeper. Wilson nodded toward Zeus. "That dog's got history, too, if you know what to look for. The way he tracks sightlines, checks approach angles, reminds me of a few partners I had in Kandahar." Cypher's head snapped up, but Wilson was already gone, leaving behind a spark of suspicion that wouldn't stop burning. Meanwhile, Helios and his crew weaved through the crowd like wolves in a pasture. Their presence sent a chill through the festival, conversation stopped mid-sentence, parents pulled children closer, vendors suddenly found excuses to turn their backs. "Quite the pianist," Helios said, stopping near the stage. "Must take real talent, playing without even seeing the keys." Emily kept playing, unbothered. But Zeus's ears twitched, locked on Helios's voice. The biker stepped closer. The dog's head turned, just slightly. "That's close enough." Tom Cooper's voice came firm and low. He'd stepped between the biker and the stage, his firefighters build now a human wall. Helios smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just admiring the show. Your daughter's something of a legend, isn't she?" The blind teacher with the magic touch. His tone made it sound less like praise, more like bait. Zeus rose. Smoothly. No growl, no bark. Just the clean, silent motion of a trained operator assuming position. Wilson, watching from the crowd, recognized it instantly. That was no pet. That was deployment posture. I think it's time you moved along, Sheriff Henderson said, stepping closer, hand resting casually near his holster. Helios raised both hands in mock surrender. Just enjoying the festival. Right, boys? But his crew had already spread across the square. Oracle hovered near the memorial wall. Phoenix and Vector watched the exits. Nexus circled closer to the stage. Emily's fingers finally stilled. Everything all right, Dad? Fine, sweetheart, Tom replied, eyes locked on Helios. Just some new folks appreciating your music. Zeus stood perfectly still, yet his position had shifted, subtle, strategic, covering more angles. Wilson watched it all unfold with growing clarity. He'd seen dogs like that in combat zones, not festivals. Smart dog you've got, Helios said, eyes narrowing. Almost too smart for a regular guide. The words landed heavy, like a test. Wilson's expression hardened. Helios had done his homework. He was digging now, searching for cracks in the story. Emily stood, her hand finding Zeus's harness. He's exactly as smart as he needs to be. The crowd around them had thinned, leaving a bubble of tension. Cypher drifted closer, caught between loyalty to his crew and what he now suspected about the dog. You know what I've noticed? Helios said louder, casting his voice across the square. Most service dogs get twitchy in crowds, with all the noise. But yours? Calm. Almost like he's seen worse. Zeus didn't flinch. Instead, he adjusted his stance, placing himself more firmly between Emily and the threat. The movement was seamless. Professional. Tactical. Wilson's brows rose. Yeah, this wasn't just a guide dog. Emily. Sarah Martinez called from the crowd. Next performance in 10. Let's get you set up. Her voice cut the moment clean, pulling Emily from the eye of the storm. Emily nodded, her hand brushing the piano one last time before turning to go. Always a pleasure, Helios called out as he backed away. We'll be seeing more of each other, Miss Cooper. Count on it. As she walked off, guided by Zeus's unshakable presence, Wilson stepped beside Tom Cooper. Where did you say that dog came from? He asked, voice low. Service program out of Helena, Tom said, watching Zeus guide his daughter away. Wilson didn't take his eyes off the shepherd. You might want to look deeper into that program. That's no ordinary service animal. Across the square, Cypher pulled out his phone. His fingers hovered above the screen. His training, limited as it was, had taught him enough to know. Whatever Zeus really was. The Devil's Wake had just crossed a line they weren't ready for. This was no longer about small-town intimidation. Sheriff Henderson watched silently as the bikers swung back onto their motorcycles, engines roaring loud enough to drown out the festival's fading music. Run those plates, he muttered to his deputy. And get me everything you can on Marcus Helios Davidson. I've got a feeling we're gonna need it. As the sun sank behind the mountains, casting long shadows over Mystic Falls Crossing, Emily played her final piece on stage. Around her, the Heritage Festival carried on, but the energy had shifted. Underneath the music and laughter, a quiet line had been drawn. In the growing darkness, war and peace stood closer than anyone realized. And at the center was a dog who had seen both. Monday evening settled over the town like a warning. The usual peace of twilight was broken by the distant rumble of motorcycles circling the streets like sharks sensing blood. Inside the now empty music academy, Emily finished her final lesson. Outside, Zeus waited at the bottom of the steps, guiding her down with flawless control, but his ears tracked every sound. 3 motorcycles had already passed twice in the last hour, slowing each time. Good lesson, Mrs. Parker. Emily called as her elderly student got into her car. Same time next week? The woman hesitated, eyes flicking toward the street. Emily, dear, maybe we move lessons a little earlier? These evenings feel less peaceful lately. Before Emily could respond, the engines grew louder. Zeus's posture shifted, not dramatically, but with the kind of precision only a trained eye could recognize. Cypher Carter, standing across the street in the shadows, recognized it. That subtle change, it wasn't civilian. Evening, teach. Helios's voice cut through the streetlight haze. He stepped out of the shadows, flanked by Phoenix and Vector, forming a loose triangle around her. Beautiful night for a walk. Emily's grip tightened on Zeus's harness. The dog stood motionless, but the tension in his body was unmistakable. Mrs. Parker, Emily said calmly, I think you should head home now. The old woman's car engine sputtered to life and pulled away quickly, leaving Emily and Zeus standing in a circle of growing threat. Helios paced around her, slowly. Been digging around a bit. Funny thing about service dogs, most programs keep records. Except yours. Can't find a single thing on him from before you got him. Zeus didn't move his head, but his eyes followed every step. Cypher watched from across the street, feeling the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. That wasn't just a dog. That was a soldier in fur. Emily stood her ground. The program's records are private. To protect donors' identities. Phoenix laughed, a cold, sharp sound that echoed down the quiet street. Or maybe to hide something else. Boss thinks your mud isn't what he seems. Step aside, Emily said, voice steady. We're going home. Oh, we'll walk you, Helios said with a smirk. Wouldn't want anything to happen to such a valuable animal. Zeus repositioned himself, just slightly. But it was enough. Enough for someone like Cypher to know that was a tactical maneuver. Classic defensive repositioning. Not guide dog behavior. Across the street, Sarah Martinez stepped out of her clinic, phone to her ear. Sheriff, she whispered urgently, you need to get to the music academy. Now. Back on the sidewalk, Helios reached forward, hand extending toward Zeus's harness. Let's see what's really under all this fancy gear. It happened fast. Too fast. Zeus moved with explosive precision, pivoting with surgical accuracy, planting himself between Emily and Helios. One paw locked, one shoulder dropped, his body creating an unbreakable wall. A perfect block. Pure military K9 response. Holy, Phoenix muttered, stumbling back. That's not normal. Helios froze. For the first time, he looked into Zeus's eyes and didn't see a pet. He saw a soldier. The calm, intelligent stare of something trained to fight and protect with lethal discipline. From the edge of the square, headlights flared, Tom Cooper's truck screeched to a halt, and behind him, Sheriff Henderson's patrol lights lit up the street. This isn't over, Helios hissed, backing away as Zeus maintained his stance. Vector. Oracle. I want everything. Now. The bikers peeled off into the night, tires screeching. Cypher stood frozen, mind racing. He knew what he'd seen. That was military K9 protocol, down to the last precise angle. Zeus wasn't just trained. He was deployed. From the diner across the street, Wilson stepped out, eyes never leaving the dog. He hadn't missed a second. Tom rushed to his daughter, hands on her shoulders. Emily, are you all right? I'm fine, Dad. Zeus. Zeus handled it. Sheriff Henderson approached, flashlight sweeping across Zeus's vest. The dog stood still, calm again, but no one could forget what they'd just witnessed. Tom's voice was low. Sheriff, I think it's time we had a real talk. About where this dog came from. Wilson stepped forward. That wasn't service dog training, he said quietly. That was combat deployment. Straight out of the battlefield. Emily Cooper, a blind piano teacher in the quiet mountain town of Mystic Falls Crossing, always believed her guide dog Zeus was special. But when a biker gang called Devil's Wake rolls into town, things start to shift. Zeus's behavior subtly changes, hyper-aware, calculating threat angles. Unbeknownst to most, Zeus isn't just a guide dog, he's a repurposed military K-9 from a classified program called Shadow Guard. Sheriff Henderson, war veteran Wilson, and veterinarian Sarah Martinez slowly uncover the truth. Zeus's microchip is military grade. His movements mirror combat-trained K-9s. And his responses to aggression, measured, efficient, non-lethal, scream elite tactical training. Cypher, a biker with a military past, recognizes the signs but keeps quiet. Tension builds as Devil's Wake targets Emily directly, and when Helios, the gang's leader, confronts her at the festival, Zeus reveals his true nature with a flawless combat maneuver. The town is shaken. Wilson confirms the impossible: Zeus isn't just a service animal. He's a combat veteran with years of operational experience, strategically placed in this peaceful town for a reason. The attacks escalate. The gang begins psychological warfare, spreading fear, planting doubt. But Zeus counters it not with violence, but with presence. Each step beside Emily becomes a symbol of silent resistance. Slowly, the town starts to rally, veterans, shopkeepers, and families unite. Vector, Helios' second-in-command, returns with allied gangs and launches a final assault. But Zeus has been preparing for this. Every walk through town had been recon. Every pause, a mental map. As chaos erupts, Zeus guides Emily and simultaneously commands the town's defense with surgical precision. His full Shadow Guard training comes online, transforming him into a one-dog tactical force. In the end, Zeus doesn't just protect. He inspires. The gangs are repelled, the town stands stronger than ever, and Zeus's dual role, as gentle guide and silent guardian, is fully revealed. Now, the world knows what Mystic Falls Crossing learned the hard way: some heroes wear service vests, not capes. And some of the fiercest protectors are the ones no one sees coming until they're needed most.